Right. I think we are live now. Are we on YouTube? Can
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
someone? Cool. Great. Great. Right. Is my voice okay right now? Can
Yeah,
someone
it's fine.
quickly confirm that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine.
And the slides are visible, right? Cool. Cool.
Yeah, it's fine, sir.
Let's just start ahead with it now. So, just a second. Just a second. Give me just one. Yes. Sorry about that. All right. Welcome everyone in this meet. Everyone joining us through the YouTube live stream. We hope you have a great learning session today and you learn something of value. You get a broad overview of what GSoC is all about and also the subtle intricacies associated with GSoC. So let's just get right into it. Okay. So what is GSoC all about? What is GSoC? GSoC is Google Summer of Code. Now, the framing of GSoC is such that it seems like it is an internship offered by Google, right? It seems like it's a summer internship. And this is what most people think of GSoC as a summer internship. But this is not correct. Some people say that it's an internship sponsored by Google, but you don't really contribute to Google's code base. You contribute to open source organization, but it's an internship sponsored by Google. While this definition is a little bit more correct than the previous one, this is not entirely true. So what is GSoC? So GSoC is an online international program designed to encourage university students' participation in open source software development. So notice that this is not an internship, but rather a mentorship program. Uh, the dehyphenation is very important because this is not about gaining corporate experience or just earning a stipend or just to flaunt it as a badge on your CV. This is much more than that. This is about understanding the open source community, being a part of a large community, contributing to the open source software platforms. So understanding what GSoC is about, understanding the core philosophy behind GSoC is very important before you think about participating or applying for GSoC. So what is it all about? Students work for an open source software organization and they earn a stipend for successfully completing the project. So basically, you work for an open source software organization. Now, what are these software organizations? Let's just have a look, right? So if you go up on Google or any other search engine and just type in GSoC archives, you right. So you go to GSoC's archive page and you see that all the previous years organizations and projects and all everything has been archived here. And here you see about hundreds of organizations. These are what you call organizations, open source organizations. Some of them may be very familiar to you: Django, Fedora, Git. There are several organizations: Joplin, LibreOffice. So let's just go into one of these organizations. Right. Uh, cool. So here you see the broad overview of what the organization is all about. They have their own description. these are the previous students who participated under this organization. You can just look into their idea list, the ideas that they had proposed last year for 2020. Right. This is just one organization. You can just choose any organization and just have a play with this. Just look into it. So this is what I meant when I said organizations. Right. University students spend their time outside of school working in a field that can help them with the studies and career after university. So this is not just like any other competition or something to be cleared. This is a real world experience. You gain a lot of experience which will definitely help you as a career perspective afterwards. But that is something secondary. The first thing, the first idea behind GSoC should be learning things and exploring the open source world, being a part of that community. How does GSoC work? So the organizations which I just showed now, these open source organizations applied. First of all, these organizations applied to be a mentor organization, right? And then once they have applied, Google chooses these organizations. They select which organizations should be selected, which should be allowed to participate in GSoC. And then once these organizations have been finalized, the students then submit their project proposals to these organizations. So first, organizations will apply, and then the students are going to apply to be a mentee in these organizations. So mentor organizations choose the student they'd like to accept. Of course, once you have submitted a proposal. Now, what is a proposal? How to write your proposal? That will be discussed in detail in later slides. But right now, you just have to understand that you write a proposal to the organization that you want to contribute to, and then those mentor organizations then choose the student that they want to accept. Then students are paired with a mentor to help them throughout the project. This is perhaps the best part of GSoC, that you are not alone in this, right? You have a mentor who will help you throughout the entire process, and they'll guide you through it. These organizations, they often say that they want you to succeed, right? They don't. They want you to clear their evaluations. They want you to complete the task that you have been assigned. So you are allotted a mentor, and that mentor helps you throughout the project. Then coding, once you have been allotted a mentor, once you have been selected, then coding begins. Students work towards milestones laid out in their project proposal. So you yourself have to lay out the kind of milestones that you want to set out for yourself. You decide your own deadline, your own timeline, the way you want to proceed ahead, and you have over 10 weeks. This has been changed this year itself. Earlier it used to be longer, but this year it's around 10 weeks, and you have to work to achieve these milestones within 10 weeks period. Evaluations. So how do evaluations work? So students must pass 2 evaluations. You have your mid evals, you have your end evals. And the stipend that you are paid is also, you do not get it at once. This is also divided. So students who pass each evaluation are paid a stipend for their work. Cool. At the conclusion of GSoC, students submit the code they have written for the project for everyone to see and use. So this is something which I feel is one of the beautiful parts of open source, that the code you write is available for everyone to see, to use, to modify. So the work that you do in GSoC will be not only like it's used by maybe hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of people all around the world. So that is an amazing aspect of GSoC, or even open source in general. Of course, coming to eligibility, you must be 18 years of age at the time of registration. You must be accepted into or enrolled in a university program by the student acceptance date, right? Eligible to work in the country in which you reside, of course, and have participated in no more than one previous GSoC. So at most, a person can participate in only 2 GSoC as a student, right? After that, you can participate as a mentor if you feel you want to, but as a student, you can participate only twice. And a unsaid rule is that you must have the willingness and enthusiasm to learn new things, because I think this is a very, very important part as far as GSoC is concerned, because you need to have the motivation to stick throughout the process. At times it may get a very demotivating. You may want to give up. You're not able to debug something, you're not able to work on an issue, you're not able to meet your deadline, and you feel like you want to give up. But you should not. That is the most important thing. You must have that willingness, you must have that motivation, you must have that enthusiasm. If you do, there's nothing that can stop you from going through the entire journey and completing GSoC. So, right. So, I think from here, I'll ask Ananya to continue forward. Before that, I think I'll just turn off my audio video so that there's no disturbance. Right. Ananya, I think you can.
Yeah. Hey everyone, just confirm if I am audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. So now coming to the things that you do not need to get selected into GSoC. First of all, the notion that yeah, dusty hoga to hi GSoC kar payega. This is wrong. Actually, anyone, like, not wrong. If you are a dusty, you can definitely do it. But the thing is that even if you're not a dusty, you can be a part of GSoC. The second is that if only computer science department can participate in this, then this is also a myth. Anyone from any department, if you have the skill related to that organization, or if you have that particular tech stack knowledge, then you can definitely participate in GSoC. Next, it comes down the line is competitive coder. Now, you need not be a competitive coder. Like, this is also a myth that the DSA is need to be known to get into GSoC. Like, you can get into GSoC even without knowing DSA, like through HTML, CSS, JavaScript, yeah, app development. You can get into any GSoC organization. You need not necessarily be a competitive coder. Next, it comes to being an expert level programmer. So this is also a myth. Even there are beginner friendly organizations where you can look for the good first issue and all, and you can start contributing in the organization even if you are not an expert. Next slide, please. Now, coming to the statistics, over the last 15 years, 15,000 students have been selected from across 104 countries into GSoC. Now, the countries from which the most of the students have been selected are firstly India, 2,831. Then comes United States, 2,328, and then comes Germany, which is 772. So around 77.5% of the UGs were got accepted into GSoC. Like, you can see, like, how the number of UG people are getting into GSoC. Even when you think that like, we need a PhD level knowledge to do ML DL based projects, but even a UG level student can also apply for GSoC, and whatever tech stack they know, they can apply for that particular organization. And they are from various branches, be it electrical, mechanical, civil, mathematics, computing, etc. And now you can understand the chronology. Like, you can get into GSoC as a student for 2 years. Now, if you get as a student and your 2-year tenure is over, then you can apply for being a mentor. And there are 601 mentors who were former GSoC students. So you can also apply for being a mentor, and they have their own benefits. Going to the next slide. These are some of the useful links. These are basically the GSoC website and the student manual which you need to go, and some of the blogs which would be helpful to know. So we'll share with you this later. Next slide. Now comes the program timeline. So from March 10, the organizations are announced. So during this part, you can look into the organizations which have been selected this year, and you can start finding that which all the skill set you know, and which all the organizations require that skill set. And like that, you can select an organization. Next comes from March 29 to 13th April, the students need to submit a proposal. Now, what is a proposal? The proposal is actually a documentation of what all knowledges you have. Like, you can over here you can brag about what all knowledges you know and you have, and what all the projects you have done, and and this is a particular hack that you should write in detail about what you will do in the GSoC period of coding. Like you should give a timeline, like during this phase I'll do this part of the coding, and during this part I will do that part of the coding. So you have to explain it correctly, like to the point, like what are the things you need to do in this while writing the proposal. Now from May 27 the accepted students are announced, so this is the D day. Then comes May 17 to June 7, where the community bonding period starts. Now, community bonding is that there are so many countries has applied, and the different mentors from different countries, and even your colleagues are from different countries. You need to have a particular, like you need to know them well before contributing to a particular idea in a organization. So for that, the community bonding period has been made, where you get to know each other and make connections as much as you can. Then from 7 June to August 16, the coding period starts. And here you have to code entirely on the projects you have selected. And then comes August 31, where the successful students who have completed their mid-evals as well as the end-evals are being announced. So this is the entire timeline of GSoC. You can also refer to the timeline in the GSoC website, which we'll share you later. Going on to the next slide. Now, you all must be thinking like, ये सब तो हो गया, perks बताओ. So the most important thing of GSoC are, what are the perks of GSoC? So coming to the perks, next slide. The perks are software development skill. First of all, this is for your personal growth. Like on a personal level, you will know what industry actually wants from you. Like you will have a hands-on on the industry level projects. Then secondly, you get a stipend of $1,500. You can multiply it with 73.1 later. So it's approximately around 1 lakh of Indian INR currency. Then what are the benefits after doing GSoC? After doing GSoC, you have the contacts which you have made in the community bonding phase and the entire GSoC duration. Then you get, if you are working under a professor under a particular university, then you get a letter of recommendation from that professor, which will greatly reflect in your CV and give you a great weightage. Then if you are working on research based organizations, then if your work has been accepted, then the paper might be published, and that is also a great achievement for your CV. Then it comes to the invitation to talks. You can also conduct you are also invited to as a speaker in different organizations or colleges. Then you can go in different conferences, travels, you are invited. So these are the perks. Next slide. Now this is actually one of he is basically a member of KOSS, and he is the advisor, Himanshu Mishra. So after doing his GSoC, he was invited in the Pune University to give a lecture on graph theory. So this is that after GSoC perks. Next slide. And this is also an after GSoC work, like Shivam Kumar Jha. He is also in KOSS advisor. So he was also invited as a speaker in this program after GSoC in IIIT Allahabad. Okay. Now this is all. I'll ask Part to continue this session. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ananya. I'll talk a little bit about FOSS, that is free and open source software. So this is in the benefit of the people who are completely new to open source, who don't know what open source is, right? Many of you might know, but like I'll still cover some basics of what FOSS means, what is free and open source software. Yeah, next slide. So any software you run on your computer, it has code running behind it, right? There are algorithms that are written in different languages that tell your computer what to do. So there are two types of software depending on like the visibility of the code. There is open source and proprietary software. So in proprietary software, you basically don't get to see the code that is running behind the scenes. So it might be like Microsoft Windows. You don't see the code that is the source code of Microsoft Windows, right? Or like Google Chrome, you don't know what is happening behind the scenes. But on the other hand, in open source software, you can actually look at the code that is running behind the scenes, and additionally, you can actually you have the freedom to modify that code and use it according to your requirements. So, like, so proprietary software, as the name suggests, is like the property of someone else, of some company, and that company has given you the license to use it, and you can use it only in the way the owner wants you to use it, right? You cannot like make modifications to it. So, for example, if I wanted to add some feature that I thought of to Google Chrome, I wouldn't be able to, right? Because I don't know the code that is running. I have no access to the code base. But on the other hand, like with open source software, I can very easily like fork the software, which is like a terminology to make your own copy of that software, and you can make some modification to it, and like you can run it however you want to. So that is a major difference between proprietary and open source software. So, yeah, next slide. So yeah, so let me just talk a little bit about the history of open source. Yeah, so this is, can anybody guess like which, like what do these symbols stand for? Like, which are these logos? If anyone knows that.
Linux.
Yeah, so the right one is the Linux penguin, and the left one is a little less known. Anyone? Okay. So this is the symbol of the GNU project, the GNU project. So I'll explain that in the next slide. Yeah, Rahul, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so like way back in 1970s, companies used to give software with their hardware, which users can look into and modify, right? So like there was a programmer at MIT called Richard Stallman, and like he noticed that the new printer, he couldn't modify the software according to his needs. That it couldn't notify of jams. So like he thought of this, and he said that why shouldn't I be able to do it, right? This is a really bad piece of software that they have given me, and like I have the knowledge and I have the skills to improve it, so why not? So like this gave him like was the inspiration to create a clone of the Unix operating system. So Unix was an old operating system that was proprietary, and this Richard Stallman decided to create a clone of it, but create an open source clone of it. So this would be available to all the people around the world, and it would be freely modifiable and distributed. So the full form of GNU is GNU is not Unix. So this is a little weird. Like if you haven't heard of recursive acronyms, so this is a recursive acronym. So like GNU itself is a part of the full form. So GNU stands for GNU is not Unix. And after that, like they needed a kernel, right? So Linus Torvalds had written an operating system kernel called Linux. So the kernel is basically like the lowest piece of software, like it sits right above the hardware, right? So they integrated the Linux kernel into the GNU project, and it was called GNU/Linux, which is popularly known as Linux, right? I hope all of you have heard of Linux. It is an operating system, and like it is quite popular. Yeah, and it is open source. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so since the 1970s, like it has come a long way. So Linux is very powerful and very portable. So it can run on a multiple of architectures, on a multiple of machines. So 91.4% of supercomputers run Linux, and the most popular mobile OS runs on open source software. So the Android operating system, which many of you might have, it is actually developed. I'm not really very sure about this, but it has been developed using the Linux kernel. Yeah. So just a minute. Okay. And like you can see that like since the software is so freely available and distributed, um, a lot of startups, a lot of companies use open source software for building their products, and in return they also give back to the community by building software in-house and publishing the source code of it, right? So some of you might have heard of TensorFlow. It is a machine learning library. It was developed at Google in-house, and like they used it for their own algorithms, and then they decided that okay, we should publish its source code and make it freely available. And it really accelerated the development uh, of TensorFlow, because like if you look at the last line, given enough eyeballs, or all bugs are shallow, right? So when you publish the source code, all people all around the world can see it, and like millions of people are seeing it. So the probability that like someone will notice a bug by using it or looking at the code is like really high, right? Because a lot of people are looking at it. So like given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. So it really helped in development. And similarly, like there have been a lot of tools and libraries that have been open sourced by all these big companies like Facebook, Uber, Google. Yeah, so that is about companies and open source. So it has come a really long way since the 1970s. You can actually go to GitHub and look at some of these libraries. Like you can check out the React.js code base. You can easily find it on GitHub, and like you can just look at the code. And that is I find it that it is really amazing that like such a useful thing is made freely available and modifiable. So yeah, next slide, please. So this is the core philosophy, I would say, of the free part in free and open source software. So it is, if you read the first line, free as in free speech, not free as in free beer, right? So it means that not the software is not there just for free consumption. Like it is not there just to use, but it is also there. It is also made free so that you can modify it and use it according to your own requirements. So if I were to if there is a browser, I'll take an example of a browser, and if I want to create my own like features, and I want to add a lot of cool stuff to it that proprietary software won't allow me to do because they won't show me the code. I can take an open source browser and like I can modify its code and uh, and use it according to my own requirements. So that is really that is a really great philosophy of open source software. And moreover, uh, you are given the freedom to redistribute the copies, so you can help your friends and you can help the people in your community. So if I create a really good browser like from the open source original browser, and I create some very cool features that I think many of my friends will be able to appreciate and they'll find it useful. So I can distribute those modified versions to them, right? And there is nothing preventing me from doing it. It is uh, like it is not illegal. It is completely legal. I can like distribute that to my friends. So yeah, so that is the beauty of open source software. Next slide, please. So here are some readings that you might find interesting. The Cathedral and the Bazaar is a really good book. Like it outlines the philosophy uh, of like open source and how it is different from proprietary software. So you could give that a read. And also, please check out all these other books, the books by Richard Stallman. So he is really a prominent figure in open source. So you can check those books out. Um, okay, then. So I'll hand it over to Raj for the next part.
Thank you, Path. So now that you have decided that you want to do GSoC, the hard part comes. The actual work you have to do comes into play. First thing you have to do is you have to select the organizations. You don't directly participate in GSoC. You don't directly send a proposal to Google. You send a proposal to an organization, and then Google decides the slots, and then they select you. Now, next slide, please. So first thing that you do is you browse through all the organizations, like literally all the organizations. It'll take a few days, but browse through all the go to the last year's, like for example, if you want to participate in GSoC 2021, go to the archives and go to GSoC 2020, and then just boil it down. Okay, like figure out the tech stack you want to work in. Let's say you want to work in WebD. So open the org, see the previous projects, see the tags, and then boil it down. And after that, dig a little deeper into it. You don't want to just take the project title and then go with it. You have to look at the students. You have to look at the students' backgrounds. You have to read their blogs as well. You have to figure out which org matches you and what you want to do. For example, if you're a first year or a second year, you don't want to be competing with PhD students. You probably want to compete with someone who is doing what you are doing. So after you have figured out, you'll probably boil it down to some 6-7 orgs, something like that. After you have picked those 6-7 orgs, try to get in contact with them. Like they'll have communication channels, they'll have mailing lists. They'll have the GitHub repositories. Just take a look at the issues, take a look at what kind of work they're doing, and just start the communication. Talk to your seniors from your college or maybe some other college. Like just ping them up. So after this grueling part, you'll probably boil it down to maybe you'll boil it down to one org. That's not recommended. Keep at least 2 or 3 orgs. But you will boil it down to the number of orgs you can actually contribute in. After the final list is out, there's a chance that some orgs that you pick may or may not come. There is also a chance that some new orgs might come. So make sure that you have a look at those new orgs, because new orgs, there's no previous contributors. So sometimes it's a lot easier to get in the new orgs. And then start contributing. Contributing is the most important part of GSoC, and it's the best way to get into it. Like if you have a bad proposal, but if you have a decent proposal, but if you have a lot of PRs, then there's a good chance you'll get selected. But if you don't have enough PRs, and even if you have a great proposal, there's a chance that you might get rejected. Next slide, please. So after that you have to. After you have selected your orgs based on the tech stack you're working in, based on the previous students and based on what you know, after that you will have to look at the specific projects. Now, typically try to select the ones which you know the most about. You won't find any project which you know completely about, so don't worry about it. Even if you have a decent idea about it, and the most important thing is you have to be excited about it. The moment you see a project, it has to be a title which you can get up early in the morning to work at. It has to excite you. If it doesn't excite you, you won't work for it. And if you don't work for it, you'll probably leave it. You probably won't even complete your proposal. So it's very important to pick a topic which excites you, even if it doesn't have any buzzwords. Like sometimes people go into GSoC, they just listen to what's going on around them. They'll just pick some standard topic like app development, which is all right, or maybe they'll pick deep learning or machine learning, and they'll try to pick universities based on that. So for example, if you pick some orgs which are directly related to, which are only doing work in ML or DL or AI, for example, there's a programming language called Julia, which was created by MIT professors. It's a very popular GSoC org, but it's very difficult to get into. You'll have to take a lot of time, and it's very much possible. Second years from our college have done it, but you have to work very hard for it because you'll be competing with masters and PhD level students. So university orgs are a little difficult. You can get into it. I'm not trying to discourage you in any way, but know what you are getting yourself into. Other than that, all projects in GSoC are open, but please make sure when you select them, you are compatible with it. Regardless of what you select, if you work hard enough, you'll get into it. That's a no-brainer in GSoC. Next slide, please. So these are just a few popular orgs which come almost every year. So R and Python, I don't need to introduce them. Most of you probably know. R has some projects in finance, but it also has a lot of projects in ML and DL, and there are a host of other orgs. But don't go, like, if you want to work in chemistry, open chemistry is there, but there are a lot of other stacks in them as well. Like, for example, I remember 2 years ago they had a project where they used deep learning for predicting molecular frameworks. So it's not as if like you'll see open chemistry, you'll see the word chemistry and you'll get scared. Open every org, there's a chance that it has a project that you might feel interested in. Like R has projects in both machine learning, finance, and mathematics. Open chemistry will have some projects which are very deeply into chemistry, some projects which are not so deep into chemistry. Some of it might be related to software development, machine learning, or some other latest fields such as reinforcement learning. So please open every org and see every project. There'll be an ideas list with them. Check the ideas. Like probably each org will have some 5-6 GSoC acceptance, like 5-6 students working on the GSoC, but they'll have a lot more ideas which they didn't get a proposal in or which no one worked in. So make sure you check the ideas list first and check the project list also, but don't ignore the ideas list. Next slide, please. Next slide. So after you select the org, now this is assuming you have done your due diligence. You have seen all the previous students' work. You have seen what the mentors are. You have an idea of what you will do. Now is the time you start to code. Like, you have to start solving some beginner issues. Like, typically there are two kinds of projects. The more popular ones are you'll have a big code base and you'll be contributing to it. And sometimes there are projects where you have to start on your own. Like, you'll have to start your own repo or you'll have to start a small project on your own. These are a little rare, but they are there. In either case, you'll have to start working. Like, if it's a project that you have to start, make your own repository and start to code. And if it's something related to the code base, try to solve some issues. Be active with the community and make sure you have some relationship with the mentor. So when the proposal is being reviewed, they know you. They know you as a person a little bit, as much as possible. And it is important to make sure your proposal keeps evolving. Like, make sure you have an early draft for it. Give an early draft. It can be very basic. It can be a simple 5-page proposal, but make sure you give it and make sure you get feedback. So let's say when the organizations are announced and you get the project ideas and you make a draft proposal on a project you want to work on, say 2 weeks after the orgs are released. It can be a basic draft. Just give that draft to your mentor, send it down, and just get some feedback. It's very important to keep changing your proposal with time. Like, for example, before my GSoC, my proposal was, I guess, somewhere between 18 and 19 pages, which doesn't really matter. The content matters. But what I want to say is I added the last 3 pages 6 hours before the deadline. It's not recommended, but I did it. I submitted it 2 hours before the deadline, and those final touches are what helped me get selected. So it has to keep changing, and it has to be as best as, like, it has to be the best possible version. So you have to keep working towards it. You don't just submit the proposal once and you disappear for a long time. You have to work towards it every day. Don't give 8 hours, or don't give like a 20-hour weekend, like you work on it for 20 hours in the weekend and you disappear throughout the week. Work on your GSoC for 2-3 hours every day. That's a much better way. Like every day, make sure it improves a little bit, and every week try to work on one PR. If you get stuck, it's okay. Try to get some help from the people around you, as in the mentors and everyone. There'll also be some helpful community members, so don't hesitate in asking for help. But make sure you keep working towards it every day. Most GSoC aspirants tend to give up. Like the number of GSoC aspirants initially are very high, but as time goes on, they start to give up. And that's not recommended, because even if it's demoralizing, it's okay. If you keep working towards it, you will get selected. Next slide, please. Next slide. So some basic do's and don'ts. Make sure you have research. Like when you ask questions, when you interact with the community members, make sure that you have done your research. Like if you are vague or you ask generic questions, then they know that you haven't done your research, because generic questions can be answered by Google. And if a question can be answered by Google and you have asked it to the mentor, then it shows that you have no regard for their time. Now, these mentors are not paid, unlike you, if you get selected. So these mentors are doing this free of cost, and they are working professionals. They are professors, they are software developers all around the world. They are doing this in their free time, and they want to be as productive as possible. So make sure you ask intelligent questions, because if you ask intelligent questions, they are more likely to reciprocate, and they'll be happy to reciprocate, because most of the discussion that you will be doing will be in a public forum, and it will help people after you if you ask good questions. So it is always appreciated by the open source community to ask good questions. Next slide, please. Again, these are very general things. Like, don't personally mail or DM the mentors. Like, don't badger them. Like, you know, like there'll be dozens of GSoC aspirants, but please don't badger them with it. Like, they're like normal people like you. Like you would want to help your juniors, right? But you would not want to be badgered with them. Again, now these are very general doubts. What will typically happen is each and every org will have their own set of guidelines. For example, it's a very general guideline that don't personally mail or DM the mentors, but there's an org called CERN which has a lot of projects, and there some professors encourage you to mail them personally. So that is a very org specific example. But the general thing you have to take away is follow the org, like follow their previous communications, follow their threads. Most importantly, follow the communications that previous GSoC students made 1 year ago. Like, go to GitHub and check the GitHub activity around exactly 1 year around the time that you are doing. Most probably someone like you would be having the same doubts and they solved it somehow. Just follow in their footsteps. Okay, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Just try to get into the history a bit. You'll probably get your questions answered. Like you don't know how to approach your mentor, you don't know how to ask a question, just go 2 years back down the GitHub history and you will probably encounter some other student asking some question. Maybe they ask a stupid question and they get corrected. So you don't ask the stupid question, you just correct yourself beforehand. Okay. Next slide, please. Again, they are busy people. Busy people meaning they're working professionals, just like you. Like some of them are even college students just like you, so you know that they'll have a lot of assignments, so they would not want to be badgered with you 24/7. Next slide, please. Yes, now this is very important. Don't ask a question like which wastes someone time in a reply. Like, may I ask a question? What if the other person says no, you are shut out, you are done. If the other person says yes, you have wasted their time. So either way, make sure that you are not a burden. And on a side note, don't try to undermine other applicants. seem helpful, but make sure that you are little bit intimidating towards them, like not in a aggressive way, but through your work. Like for example, if you are working on one project and you have decided it, make sure you have a lot of PRs in it. Make sure you have contributed a lot to it. So if the other person comes and sees you, like you're being all helpful, you are being active, you have a lot of PRs, you are offering to help them, then they'll probably get intimidated and they'll probably leave. Okay, if you try to be aggressive, you'll inspire more competition against you. So be nice, be active, and most of all work and show your work. That will scare away all your competitors. Okay, so most probably if you have a lot of good PRs, there won't be any competing proposals against you. Next slide, please. Again, being persistent is the key. Most people give up on their GSoC dreams. Like halfway through the proposal, they're like, no, I'm done. I'll do something else. I'll do a project under a prof. I'll do this intern. I'll work on this project on my own. N number of things. If you are halfway done with your proposal, submit it. Even if you are not sure, submit it. Work towards it. Like make sure your work doesn't go to waste. Even if you think you are not going to be selected, send PRs. Maybe you'll get selected next year. Maybe you send good PRs, and this has happened a few times. Like one of my friends submitted a lot of PRs. He wasn't selected because of certain limitations by the number of seats in the org. So he got a personal reply from a mentor after the results were announced. He apologized to him. He said the only reason we didn't select you is because of the limitations we had. He offered an internship to him, and he offered for him to apply next year. So the key is you work and you will get the results, even if you are not selected. Like if you work, you will learn. Just think about it. If you have worked towards your project, if you have sent the PRs, then you can code. If you have written your proposal, then you know what to code. So you have already learned so much by just giving a proposal that it becomes worth it, even if you don't get selected. Some of the many good projects don't get selected, and many mediocre projects do get selected. So sometimes good projects are the one that doesn't get selected because of the high competition that you face. So don't be dejected if you are not selected. It's fine. It happens. Like it happens with a lot of people. Next slide, please. Again, like this is actually more related to the coding aspect of the proposal. If you are stuck, in general, don't give up. That's obvious. Try to get help. Try to get help from general sources. Try to get help from your mentors, the other people working on the GSoC project. Collaborate on a PR. It's fine. If it's a PR that doesn't seem to be resolving, try to move on and come back some other time. But again, the key is don't give up. Next slide, please. So here comes the proposal drafting part. Like this is how you form your proposals and ideas. The bottom line is read all proposals, all previous GSoC aspirants proposals. Read everything. Read your competitor's proposal if it is available. Okay, and try to improve on it. Every few days, try to improve on it. Keep thinking about it. Like even if you are let's say you work on your GSoC proposal 2 hours a day. Okay, like you are eating, you are having lunch. Just keep thinking about it. Like in your free time, you're bored. Just keep thinking about what you might do. Like this might happen. Google some weird idea that you get. It's okay to have some weird ideas, but the point is keep trying different things. Like keep reading blogs, consult your seniors on what to do. This is very important. Like consult your seniors on what you might do. Like they'll give some very valuable advice. Your KGP seniors, you can ping any of them. Like in KOSS, I know all my batchmates, I know all my seniors, I know my juniors. You can ping them and they'll respond. Don't badger them. If you ask genuine questions and you ask genuine doubts, I am sure they'll respond. Maybe they'll take some time, but they will respond. In KGP, all seniors are very, very responsive and very helpful. I don't know about other colleges, but every time I've pinged a KGP senior, I've never been disappointed. So make sure you ping your seniors. And can we have a next slide, please? Okay, so now we have reached the Q&A session. Like, you can ask me questions, you can ask anyone questions if you want. Guys, I'm open to some questions. Anything you want to ask me? So, like, not even me, like any of the previous people. Anyone? Okay. So no questions.
Yeah, I think there are some questions in the chat.
Okay.
Is it? Someone is asking, is it late?
No,
if
no, no,
I...
no. You can no, absolutely not. You can start your GSoC preparations now. Like, some people start their GSoC preparations after the org results are announced. Like, don't do it. It's not recommended, but you can start to do it. Like, for example, I'll tell you, when I started, I was working on one org. I had sent a few PRs. They weren't merged, but in the after the organizations were announced and people started to aggressively work, I realized that I might not be able to compete in this org, so I switched orgs. Like, 2 weeks after the orgs were announced, I switched, and even then it's possible. So it's never too late to start your GSoC preparation, but if you want a good project in a good org, it's recommended you start working today. Even if you don't know the programming language, even if you don't know anything, start working today. Work on it 2 hours every day. There's a decent chance you will make it. Okay, don't let anything stop you. Even if you don't know the proper programming languages, you can learn them as you go. Anything else?
Like, I hope no one, like, you guys aren't intimidated by everything you see. Like, it's fine if you have questions.
Trying to learn new tools after. Yes, absolutely. That's actually the motive of GSoC. Like, after like when you select your project, like, let's say when the proposal, like when the ideas list come in and the orgs are announced, so you select a project, it is expected that you learn new tools and you work towards it. So no one in GSoC expects you to know the entire tech stack. It doesn't happen. It will never happen. It's not what GSoC is for. Even if you meet like 30% of the criteria, apply for it, work towards it. You have the time to learn new tools, make a proposal, and get selected. But at the same time, you have to be pragmatic. You can't expect to get into a very high profile org with a very high profile project and start very late. If you are starting late and if you are new, you have to look for projects that suit you. The most important, there are two things to GSoC essentially. The first thing is you work towards it every day. You don't give up. Even if it feels like you are not going to make it, keep working towards it. That is the most important thing. The second aspect is know your project and know yourself. Like, even it's okay you don't know the project, but you have to be able to anticipate your capabilities and say, hey, this is the project. After this, you can learn, and you can, by the time the proposal is submitted, I know everything. I know what I need to do. Amar Datta has a question. I find very few orgs working in C++, C. Should I learn Python? Not necessarily. If you know C++ and C, find a org which uses it. Even if the project is intimidating, you know the language. Work towards learning what they expect of you. Like, for example, C++, the two orgs I can remember. One is MLPack. It works on machine learning. It's a machine learning library in C++. And the other is Boost, which is also a collection of C++. It's also written in C. So these two orgs, go in it, find issues, solve them, pick a project, work towards it. Even if you don't get into it, it's fine. But since you know C++, it will be easier for you to do it. And if you want to learn Python, it's okay. Like there will be there might be some projects that require C++ and Python a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think like you will have any trouble picking up Python if you learn.
Exactly, like it's not a big deal, but like don't switch languages just because you think that there is no org in C++. Like don't do that. If you want to work in C++, work in C++. If you want to learn Python, if you like, learning Python isn't very difficult, I'll tell you. It's like you can do it in a week. You will have enough Python knowledge to start working. Yes, so yes, are there any other events like GSoC? So there's another slide dedicated exactly to that. Lots of such events like GSoC. So we'll get to that in a while. Like you'll have the resource. Like there's a, like you Google this question and there is a GitHub page. So there's an entire GitHub README which is dedicated to this. Yes, it's been posted here. So any other questions? What should be my approach to understand the code? You don't understand the entire code base. Like it becomes very difficult. You just start work, like you just get some basic knowledge about how it works, and a little by little you understand. Like you don't start reading the entire code base. Like this is some like I don't have much experience in reading entire code bases. My project was a little small. Someone else could probably answer this, but from what I know, like what I did when I was trying to propose is I was trying to find bugs. Number one is I found bugs and I tried to reproduce them on my computer, and then I used a debugger to to find out what's going wrong exactly, and I tried to solve it. Yes, a link has been posted, so you can just read through it. It's a very common question, and just read through it and you'll understand what to do. Any other questions? Okay, so I think if you have any other, we'll wait. Okay, I think we can move on. You can type more questions in the chat box if you want. We'll answer them.
So we'll have one at the end, a question answer session at the end, I think.
Okay, so let's move on.
Cool.
So next, now these are just some unofficial guides. This Dr. Chris Ruckers. He works in differential equations in Julia. So he made an entire blog for this, and one of KOSS's founders, Himanshu Misra, you might remember him. He did the talk in graph networks in that university. So this is a very comprehensive guide, or Quanta's GSoC FAQs. But also make sure that you read the official student guide by Google. It's very clear, it's very concise, and it should probably answer most of your questions. And all this Alpha, like Shivam Kumar Jha also wrote his experience, and make sure you read this because this one he wrote after he did his GSoC in his first year. So please make sure you read that. Like the ones who are little young, like first year, second years, make sure you read this, because like not many people can do it in their first year. It's very rare. So next slide, please. So Parth, you might want to continue.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Raj. Yeah. So like someone was asking programs similar to GSoC. So as you can see, like there's a lot of open source programs that happen, right? So like Outreachy is one that I think it is aimed towards girls. Outreach, yeah, yeah. So it is aimed towards girls, so girls can participate in outreach. Uh, there's the Julia Summer of Code. Like Julia is a new language, and it is getting quite popular. So you might want to look into it. So yeah, so these are some programs that are alternates to, not alternates but similar to GSoC. Okay, so we'll share these slides later. You can go through it. You can also check out this link in the slide. It is a curated list of all the open source internships, and yeah, so you can check that out. Next slide, please. So just I'll give you a brief history of, so just some facts about GSoC history from IIT Kharagpur. So next slide. So as you can see, like this is uh, the number of students that were selected into GSoC in the previous years. So it is like somewhat of an inward, like a bell curve. So it reached the maxima in 2017, and like unfortunately it has been decreasing. But it is also possible that like because of the popularity of GSoC, like a large number of students participate. So like it really increases the competition. So yeah, we hope to see like in 2021 a lot more people uh, participate, like apply and get into GSoC. Yeah, next slide. So these are some schools with the most accepted students in GSoC 2019. Like as you might be knowing, like India, Indian students really are prominently successful in GSoC. Like in one of the previous slide, you could see that like the highest number of students were selected from India itself, even more than US. So these are like some of the universities. So IIT Kharagpur ranked what is this sixth in the number of accepted students in 2019, and yeah, next. Yeah, and it was third in 2017 with 31 selections. So yeah, so these were some statistics of previous years. We really hope to see like a lot more participation and a lot more successful students uh, going through GSoC. Okay, so we'll be hearing some like GSoC stories about preparation and how their experience was. So I'll ask um, Raj, Yash, you guys want to share some stuff?
Yes. Yash is Yash.
Yeah, Yash is here.
Like you can go first.
So basically, when I started, I was interested in deep learning and computer vision. I had worked in it. I worked on it in the end of my first year. So I chose. So I went. I just skimmed through the list first, like I told you before this, and I selected Julia and I selected ML back. So I made the mistake which I told you about. I tried to compete with master's degree and PhD students. I just picked the best sounding projects in the best sounding orgs, and I worked towards it. I worked hard, but uh, but I couldn't compete with them, to be honest. And what was important at that point, even after I'd worked so much and after I had created a rough proposal, is I had to switch orgs, and it is now that was a very pragmatic and difficult decision, but it worked out for the best. What happened was I kept even when I was working on Julia, I kept skimming through the list. I kept looking for ideas, and kept I kept looking and looking for projects that match what I do. So after I found that project, I left Julia. I had a PR in progress. I had a draft proposal in progress. 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks after the projects were announced and the deadline for the proposal was still there, I I switched dogs and I started working towards it. So it was built from scratch project. Okay, it wasn't a read a huge code base kind of a project. So I had to work on it from scratch. So basically, I started to read some research papers because it was a it was a task related to deep learning, so I had to read a lot of papers. I came up with a solution. I made a draft proposal and I kept getting feedback. The first draft proposal I submitted, I guess, around 1 month before the deadline, 1 month or somewhere 25 days before the deadline, I submitted the first draft and I got some feedback after 1 week. So it's very important to submit your draft proposals early because you need feedback to improve. And if you don't get feedback, like how will you make the proposal? Like how will the mentor accept that proposal? Like you're just proposing on what you know. You never got feedback on what the mentor wanted. So make sure you get the feedback early on. So after I got the feedback, I started to work on it. I changed a little bit, but I was having trouble, just getting started, just starting to code because it was a from scratch project and it was a very data intensive project. I had to handle huge data sets and it was a kind of a mess. I did not know what to do, and 1 week before the deadline, I was rejected. Like I was depressed. I was like, I'm not going to do GSoC this time. So my proposal was more or less ready at that point from what I did, but last week I did not work on it that much. I wasn't even planning to submit it. So in the KOSS group of my batchmates, and we were just talking, and I just got that vibe. Like this was, I guess, 12 hours before the deadline. I just got that vibe that maybe I should submit, like just to try it. Like why waste that proposal? So in the last 6 hours to the deadline, I started working on it again. I changed it. I added some 3 to 4 pages on some new idea that I just got at that time, based on the feedback I had received. So 1 hour before the deadline, I submitted, and I just submitted it. And it was a from scratch project. So I had no PRs at that point. But I had a very good proposal. I did not know it at that time, but it was a very well thought out proposal, and I had worked a lot towards in it. And anyone who read that proposal would know that I had worked a lot in it. I had probably worked on an average 3 to 4 hours every day for the past 3 months. And weekends was a little bit higher, but I had worked a lot towards it, and everyone knew that. My friends knew it, and I was kind of closed off to them at that point. So some of my personal relationships also got affected. But it was all well and good when I received the mail that I was accepted. I did not expect it at all, but it happened. So that was my story of how I got selected, and it's a bit different because don't get bogged down by the fact that I did not submit any PR. I had submitted a PR when I was working for Julia, and the project I was working on, I had to do a lot of research and read a lot of papers. So my work went over there. So don't confuse that. Don't confuse the fact that I didn't submit a PR. Still I got selected. 95% of GSoC projects you need PRs to get selected. So that was my GSoC story. I think Yash should have a better one. He did it in his first year. I did it in my second.
Thank you, Raj, for your detailed description. For me, I had started for the recent GSoC project that I did with Open Astronomy. So I started from January itself, like 31st January. So this was the date I kind of started. So I went through the community channel. So each of the orgs have their own communication channel, like Slack or React or anything sort of that. So you can join there and have a look at who are the main people who are coordinating the project and stuffs like that. I had a look at the issues of Open Astronomy, particularly SunPy, and I went about solving it. So I had little bit of interest in astronomy, and one of the reason why I chose that organization was that I kind of chose the organization based on how many KGP alums were selected last year. So this is kind of a pointer that worked. It worked for me. It might not work for you. Like I have heard stories where an organization it took part for like 4 or 5 years and it didn't take part in the latest year. So it can happen. So make sure like you have done like you have a backup organization for that. And yeah, so with SunPy, I like it was kind of a common process. Like you fix the issues, you submit the PRs, and make sure you interact with the mentor, and you show that you're quite enthusiastic with working with them. And this is the part where most people kind of like slack or maybe don't get the time to interact, especially now with when you have to work from home, so you have the online classes and stuff like that, so it will become difficult. So make sure that you are kind of interactive and try to like take part with whatever community that you're wanting to work with. So this was my story. I have heard few stories. So basically, I had like bunch of people, most of my friends who got like selected and rejected for GSoC. So one of them was he worked with Julia for quite a long time, and he was like willing to work with the differential equation package. But since Julia is kind of quite a popular organization, so it received kind of 100 proposals for around 20 projects. I'm not sure of the stats, but you can understand how many people actually applied for that. So his project didn't get selected, but still he was quite involved with the community. Like he kind of had regular communications with the mentor, and he tried to push in some PRs as and when he got time and he understood the problem statement. So this way he got a chance to like participate in MLH fellowship. So this is another open source program that you can have a look. So it's like all of the effort that you put in to get started with open source, particularly for GSoC, it pays off in the long run. So since I have had fair share of experience with open source, so a kind of thing more like what you will like gain out of getting involved with open source. So after like completing my GSoC with Open Astronomy, so of course I wanted to try distributed systems and computer networks and something sort of that. So I wanted to change my field. So since programs like GSoC had made sure like how you will get started with any organization. So I had a look with Cloud Native Computing Foundation, CNCF. So they mostly like have a bunch of open source software which kind of deal with these distributed systems. So like I happen to contribute to Thanos. So it's I will put the link out here. So it's thanos.io, which is kind of a distributed software. So I kind of uh, like uh, got involved with the community, and since I wanted to learn distributed systems and how things work practically, so the more like the experience of working with open source organization really helped me. So like I will would encourage you, like if you want to get involved with software in your later half of your career, so make sure that you get hold of open source organizations, try participating or even applying for GSoC. If you get through, it's a really good experience. If you don't get through, you will still have the experience of how to get started with an open source organization. And later, when you gather experience and idea, and you start to prioritize on which fields you want to work, you will slowly understand the impact of contributing to open source. So let's say if you want to dive into machine learning and deep learning, then you will find that Julia is quite a really good organization for that. Like the problem statement out there, it's kind of the thing that you would want to solve. It takes time, like it takes around 2 or 3 months to get the project up and running, but you would have a practical experience of developing a software which would be used by like millions of people. So this is kind of an opportunity you won't get while you work. Since you are in college, you will have a lot of time, so make sure that you try it out. It's kind of one kind of an experience, and it will certainly help you in the long run. So that was my story. If you have any questions, you can personally ping me or you can ask in the chat.
Thanks, Yash. Does anyone have any questions for Raj or Yash? you can ask them in the chat box, or you could just unmute it and speak out loud. Okay, so yeah, so it seems like no one has any questions. So you can obviously you can ping either of them for if you have any doubts. And Rahul, could you please go to the previous slide? Yeah, yeah. So you could check out this MetaKGP page, which is basically like the people who have successfully participated in GSoC in the previous years. So you could just go through that list and you could ask them for their experiences and their advice. So please do make sure to go through this MetaKGP wiki if you are interested. Okay, so I guess that brings us to a close. Uh, if you have any feedback, you can just fill in this form. I'll type it out in the.
So I wanted to share a few words like
Yeah,
before we
yeah,
close in this.
sure.
So like I don't know, like most of you are from first year or second year, so like I'm not aware of it. But if you are from first year, like feel free to contact your seniors, people from course, because like things are pretty challenging out there. You haven't had a college experience of like interacting with seniors, so it's quite different. Like how would you approach a senior? So like please feel free to ask us any questions. It can be a trivial thing, but make sure that you get more knowledge from your seniors, because we have a lot of things that we have worked on, and we would love to like share our experiences and help you through. So even if you are from second year, so don't shy away to ask questions. It can be like you can ping us personally, no issues with that, but at least don't hesitate from contacting us.
Yes, this is like really important, especially for first years who haven't had any in-person interaction. It will be difficult for you to gain a lot of insights if you don't reach out yourselves. So please do so. Okay then. So if no one has any question, does anyone have any questions? Last call. Okay, cool. So we have Priyanshu has shared the slides in the chat box. So if you want to refer to them later, you can just go to them. Okay, so thank you everyone for attending, and all the best to everyone who will be pursuing these. All the best. Thank you.